Dinosaur rivalries. You know the ones. T-Rex versus Triceratops, Blue versus the Indoraptor, and T-Rex versus Spinosaurus. Rivalries between dinosaurs have become an integral part of the Jurassic franchise, with some like the T-Rex vs Spinosaur going on to cause fan debates that lasted for a decade. I still remember people debating till their lungs gave out about which one deserved to win or not. These rivalries often give an excuse for cool fight scenes, but they also help to remind us of the savagery when it comes to prehistory. However, there was one rivalry in this franchise in particular that, despite having the most potential out of every single fight, ended up becoming a confusing mess. That being Rexy versus the Giga. This one rivalry, by all accounts, should have been the best one of the franchise, but instead was ultimately underwhelming and a missed opportunity. But why is that? What was it about this rivalry that made it an interesting concept, but ultimately lacked the same magic every other rivalry did? Hey guys, it's the Pink King here, and today we're going to answer just that. Now, I've already made it clear my thoughts on Dominion plenty of times, but something I've never really mentioned was my opinions on Rexy versus the Giganotosaurus. Because despite how bad the rest of the movie was, this rivalry did initially stand out to me as something that really could have worked. Yes, we've seen T-Rex have a rivalry with other dinosaurs before, but instead of just being a monster, they could have really brought a lot of personality and life to these dinosaurs through this rivalry for one another. Perhaps even use a metaphor for the once top dog now falling behind as life once again finds a way to shake things up. It didn't need to be anything too complex, but it could have been something that added to the story. For example, take a look at another iconic fight from this franchise, that being Rexy versus the Indominus Rex. What made that fight so interesting was not only the visual level, but also it on a cinematic level as well. How it was just, simply put, the perfect climax to the movie, with it fitting the themes of the movie really well, that being the idea of the past versus the future, and how we don't learn from our mistakes but end up making them even worse. And if you want to take it a step further, it could also represent the old style of Hollywood fighting the newer style of Hollywood. How the original, despite having limitations, found success within those limitations and ultimately wins because it had a soul, where often a lot of modern Hollywood blockbusters lack that soul. It was simple, to the point, and made sense. But Rexy versus the Giganotosaurus, on the other hand, was not as fortunate. Let's start with the first problem, the prologue. Not only is it completely inaccurate that a T-Rex would ever meet a Giganotosaurus in the first place, but they tried to establish that this rivalry has been going on between their species for millions of years. Okay, while that may not be anything too complex, at least it's something. That's something we can get attached to. A natural rivalry between two creatures is something that could have been really compelling, but there was one big problem with this prologue. That being, it was cut from the movie. Yeah, the thing that establishes these two creatures having a connection in the first place is completely absent from the final cut. It's only available on YouTube. Now, some of you may think that this is not a big deal, or why does this matter? But later on, it becomes a pretty major one, as in the final clash of the movie, they cut back to this scene from the prologue as if the film had come full circle. So, to anyone who watched the movie and didn't see the prologue, they have no idea what this moment was supposed to be. So not only do you lose that impact you were trying to have, but you end up confusing your audience because you removed a key part of the story, the beginning. This film had a middle and end, but didn't have that beginning. And when you don't have that beginning, everything else that comes afterwards just ends up crumbling in on itself. And this very issue leads to the biggest problem with this rivalry, that being the lack of significance. Ask yourself this, peeps. What does this rivalry add to the movie? What purpose does it serve? How do these two dinosaurs not getting along move the story forward? Basically nothing. You could remove all these two dinosaurs scenes together and the movie would practically stay the same, which is something you can't say about the other dinosaur rivalries from the franchise, like Spinosaurus versus T-Rex. Despite that being short, it helped to establish the Spinosaurus as a dangerous threat, with it killing the main threat from the past two movies, helping its intimidation level instantly go up, and for us as the audience to take it seriously. And even in the movie before Dominion, with Blue versus the Indoraptor, that fight was significant because both dinosaurs were contrasts of one another. One side was raised with love and care, the other was forced to grow up into a hideous weapon. It was a conflict that, again, while brief, added more life to the story. If you were to cut any of these out, you'd lose an important part to those movies. But with the Giga versus Rexy, there's simply put no significance, because we have no setup, so everything just feels random and meaningless, thus making the final battle feel hollow and confusing, because they act like this was all leading up towards this final clash, but nothing in the movie was building towards this. It quite frankly is a fight that just comes out of nowhere, and as a fight, it isn't even that interesting. Almost every other dinosaur fight has something to make it interesting and enjoyable for us to watch, like the constant shifts in power dynamics in the Jurassic World climax, or the savage and primal fight between the Spinosaurus and the T-Rex in Jurassic Park 3. But here, you barely even see them fighting. It's mainly the characters trying to avoid being stepped on, and the dinosaurs fighting in the background. And plus, it's over so fast that you can't even get excited by what's going on. It ultimately just ends up being two CGI monsters fighting each other in another dark space. And not to mention the random appearance from the Therizinosaur? It just comes out of nowhere for no other reason than to be convenient for the plot and just stand there still while Rexy impales the Giga on its claws. It's such a deus ex machina, and it's so obvious, it just feels so forced. Like, they couldn't think of any other meaningful way to end this conflict, so they had to pull this out their arse. That's all they had to do. So with all these issues lying about, how would I have fixed this rivalry? Well, I would have done something a bit simple. First off, I would have kept the prologue. It's an important part to this rivalry as it establishes that it even exists in the first place. Secondly, I would have had the Rex and Giga show up more throughout the film, help to really hammer home that nature is reordering the food chain, and that T-Rex is no longer the top dog. This would not only help make the final battle feel much more satisfying, but it would help to reaffirm the Giga as a serious threat throughout the movie, instead of just someone who randomly appears for the end. And finally, I would have had a longer final battle that needed to happen for the characters to somehow escape. Similar to the ending of Jurassic World, so that this feels necessary and not forced. You know, maybe the characters get trapped by the Giga and they need to get the T-Rex involved in order to break free. Something like that would have helped make this finale feel more earned and more necessary. I believe that with this simple structure, Rexy and the Giga could have been something that defined not only the movie, but the Jurassic World trilogy in general, as in one last dance to end off the trilogy in a big, meaningful way. But that's just what I think. But what do you guys think? How would you have handled this rivalry between Rexy and the Giganotosaurus? And what is your favourite dinosaur rivalry in the franchise? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say here. And if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more content just like this where I cover Jurassic, be sure to like this video and subscribe. Doing so not only tells me you want more content just like this, but it helps me make that content for you guys a lot faster. So peeps, like the video and subscribe. And with that peeps, it's been the Pink King here, and I will see you all next time.